Welcome, everyone. I am so thrilled to be back with another Mosaic Arts Online live event. It is always so amazing to connect with our community, especially knowing that we're bringing people together from all over the world. Whether this is your first time joining us or you've been here before, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Really quickly, I just wanted to let you know, Jerry and I just got back last week from our 2 sold-out Mosaic art retreats in Todos Santos. It was so magical. There's nothing like teaching live, being fully immersed in the creativity with our students and sharing our stunning location with these students. They love it so much. I'm already counting down the days till we go back this fall for our November retreat. And next year, I have fully committed to 6 retreats next year. So if you're interested, get in touch. Otherwise, stay tuned for more details. But before we dive in, please pop into our chat and let us know where you're from and say hello. It's always great to see where people are coming from in our Mosaic community and what parts of the world you represent. And while you're at it, please make sure to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss our future live events, these artist interviews, and everything else we like to bring to our YouTube channel, including our demos in under 20. So these live sessions are one of the best ways that you get a chance to get to know our MAO artists and discover some of the new ones maybe you don't follow or have never met. And today you're in for a real treat. We're joined with 3 incredibly talented artists, all working in stained glass mosaic, but each has their very own and beautiful distinct style and voice. And that's why I've invited them here today. We have Shug Jones from Dallas, Texas, Darcel Deneau from Detroit, Michigan, and Jennifer Kuhns from Olympia, Washington. You'll hear about how each of them have found their way to mosaic art, how their personal styles have evolved, and what continues to inspire them to work every day. So if you don't follow them, hopefully you will after today. And without further ado, please welcome Shug Jones, Darcel Deneau, and Jennifer Kuhns. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
So before we get started, the way it's going to work today is we're going to have kind of a round table where I will ask a question and each of them will get a chance to answer it. And there will be some discussion involved. And then we'll have some questions for them from our audience at the end. So if you can leave your questions in the chat at the end when I ask for them, that will be great. And we will answer all of them. So I'm going to start with Darcel and start just by each of them are going to talk a little bit about their background and how they stepped into the world of art, because a lot of you have different backgrounds before mosaic art became a part of it. So Darcel, why don't you start with a little bit about your background as an artist?
Well, I went back to school in my 30s and I decided to get a fine art degree. And while I was there, I had been living in the suburbs, coming back to Detroit for school, and I really loved the city, but I found it wasn't a popular opinion. So I started painting a lot of paintings of Detroit, kind of so people would see the city a little bit more vividly and that there was beauty there. And so I painted a lot of years, more than 10 years. I did mosaic, or I did just painted landscapes, and I did well. And we have this wonderful, wonderful friend, Joan Schwartz.
Joan Schwartz, many of you know her.
She convinced me to take some mosaic workshops, and I was doing portraits and flowers and different things. And one of the students in the class said, "Why don't you try doing one of your landscapes in mosaic?" And I started with a really huge piece, and it took me a few years, and because I had painting obligations in between. So I just kept trying to, plug away at this. But when I finally finished it and I grouted it, I had this overwhelming feeling like, this is what I want to do. It was really, I haven't turned back. It's been 8 years.
And you've never picked up a paintbrush since, correct?
I don't think I have. No?
It's a pretty amazing transformation, and it has been a huge success for you. And we're thrilled you're part of the mosaic art community now.
Thank you.
Jennifer, same thing. Tell us a little bit about how it all started from the very beginning.
I've always made art in different mediums, and throughout my 20s, I would just explore, anything I could get my hands on. I was trying it. I hadn't really found a voice per se, and I was mainly doing recycled art, which was just a matter of using my resources. And I had gotten to the point where I was actually, like, by the thousands, I was starting to have little mini gallery shows or be part of group shows and bazaars. And I was selling at recycled art fairs and events. And there was a local gallery that sold recycled art specifically. So that's what I was doing when I was discovering the idea of mosaic. And mainly I was just chopping up tiles and sticking them to mirror frames and plant pots and things like that when I started. And it wasn't until 2009, and I had really gravitated toward mosaic, and I'd started working with stained glass. And then I went to my first SAMA conference with the Society of American Mosaic Artists, and it just blew my mind, all of the different functional ways to use mosaic. And that was when I decided what I wanted to do was larger scale site specific mosaic, backsplashes and floor inlays and privacy screens. And then I had started learning to cut stained glass by partially attending chaperoning some classes, some high school classes. And then getting to know a lot of those instructors and starting to pick up their scrap buckets and incorporating that into my work. And then that became my favorite medium, little by little. So I really come at it from more of it's a combination of leaded glass design style mixed with mosaic design style, and then mix that with tile setting, basically.
That's awesome. And we'll get more into some of the work that you've done recently and how you guys each do it so differently, but your big commissions that you have finished and are about to embark on. So Shug, tell us a little bit about how those tiny little pieces tell such incredible stories.
Well, I started doing art really young. When I was in first grade, my teacher recognized that I had talent and brought me back every year to teach the kids in her class how to draw a turkey. And as I got older, when I was 12, my uncle, who was a painter, took me to a class with him it was a German painter. I have no clue who it was. But he came to our little town, and he was going to teach classes that summer. So my uncle asked my mother if I could go with him, and she said, sure. So we went to Sherwin and Williams, which was the only place to get art supplies at that time. This was back in 62. And we got oil paints and brushes and a palette and everything. And I took that, and that was it. That from then on, I wanted to be an artist. That's all I ever wanted to be, was an artist. And I didn't get to practice too much in my 20s because I got married when I was 19, and my husband went into the Navy, and we traveled the world and had children, and I just didn't have the time. But once my kids got into school, I started painting again, and I went to college. I started when I was 39, and I took illustration and painting and drawing, and just loved it, and realized how much I didn't know, And when I was about 50, I had been in a painting group with a group of ladies, and one of them came in and told us about a mosaic commission that was being offered for a neighborhood in Plano. And Lynn Chen and she was in the group with me, we decided that we would start a mosaic company and we would apply for that commission. And we got it. We taught ourselves how to do mosaic. We read everything we could find. We checked out all the books in the libraries about mosaic, and the internet was just really getting started up because this was like in 2000, and so we didn't have all the resources that we have now. And she had a friend who was a rep for a company, and she went to talk to designers and architects and everything all the time. So she took us on as clients, and she took us to dog and pony shows, is what we call them, to present to these people what we did and how it could be incorporated into their projects. So for a long time, Lynn worked with me for about 5 years, and we did huge projects in hotels. One of the major ones was the it's in Dallas. I can't even think what it was, but there was a big, huge floor and a pizza oven in one of the restaurants, and we did things in hotels, restaurants, schools, homes, everything. And 2013, we decided we were tired of doing that. By then, Julie Dilling had joined me, and we loved doing it, but we didn't love climbing scaffolding or crawling around on the floor anymore because I was getting up in years. Julie's quite a bit younger than me, but so we what we call semi-retired to do our own fine art. And that's what I've been doing since then. And my painting was very realistic. It was very tight, um, like Darcel, but she's was looser than me. but but I also gravitated to doing my own personal mosaics, very similar to my painting, and I like that style. I've always liked that style. I love people, and I love doing mosaics of people, just, and that's what I've run with, and I love it. And once I went to mosaics, I had done painting, pencil, colored pencil, scratch board, you name it, I'd done it. But when I found mosaics, it's been 25 years ago now, I knew I had found my place, and I've never wanted to do anything else.
Wow. And I think that can be said for all four of us sitting here, because here we are with 25 years. I started my first company in 2002, and not quite as ambitious as Shug, but doing large scale commissions. And so, yes, I think each of us can say we have definitely, skinned our knees and blood, sweat, and tears into many years in this medium. So that kind of leads me to my next question. And I guess I'll just keep going around. So Darcel, you guys each create with stained glass, but as you can tell, just looking behind them at each of their bodies of work, how different they are. And what inspired you to develop your unique style? So Darcel, I know it started with the photography and the painting, but how did you realize that this would really work with these tiny chips creating your taillights and the reflectivity?
I feel like the painting background, I had a wonderful workshop with Shug, maybe even two, and she taught me a lot. Carol Shelkin taught me a lot, and so many things came together, and I realized that doing mosaic was almost exactly like painting. Each piece was like a brush stroke. You can define the edges of a car by finding some curvy pieces, and then you get that curve. Or of a face, you would put the paint to kind of define the form. And I realized it was just like painting. But what I liked so much more about mosaic is that I find I'd like to put other things into it. So I kind of just I like the building process, and sometimes I like the meaning of the objects that can go into my pieces. So it is very much like painting, but I use a lot more Band-Aids. And you have to. Another thing I really like is sometimes when I get paintings would take me longer and longer to do because I kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter. But with mosaic, you can only get so tight because you don't have that much control over the glass. It has an inherent style that just because it's glass, that's about as good as you're going to get that, and you get that. A bit of a impressionistic feel from the glass, and I like that, and I embrace that with my work.
So do you feel like since you're working with glass, you actually can let go a little bit more and it doesn't have to feel as tight?
Yeah, but I find myself sometimes making smaller and smaller little chips on occasion. Like I was, oh, I'm going to do something really simple. I'll make a whole bunch of tiny pieces. We have this little local thing where you can have a one-night pop-up show. I'll make all tiny pieces because the whole theme of that show is like make things that aren't too expensive. I'll simplify the compositions and oh my gosh, I got carried away, but they came out fabulous. But I can get carried away. But it's a labor of love.
Exactly.
I love to do it, and sometimes I don't know that I'm bleeding, but I just keep going. So
You're like, that glass wasn't supposed to be red.
yeah, what's going on here? Yeah.
So Jen, tell us the same sort of thing. How did all that really style that you have come about from, as you were working? I think that's one of the biggest things we like to share about Mosaic Arts Online is that you are all three these incredibly talented teachers that want to share, what it took you to get where you are right now and your style of doing it. But you want other people to learn your technique so they can kind of go out on their own and create something a little different. So this is more about how you guys each did that. So Jen, how did that sort of come about for you?
So like I mentioned, I started out learning to cut glass from fused glass and leaded glass artists. So I was already kind of coming to the shaping of my pieces from a different tradition than the traditional mosaic artists do, with it being broken up into all the little pieces. But it allows me the flexibility by gluing it to something to add in other little things, kind of like Darcel said. You can bring more things into it. You can be like, oh, this cool little piece will have a fun reflective quality here or texture that that you can't bring to it with even by using fused glass, or like using glass for fusing and leaded glass. It's more planned out. Maybe not so much with fusing, but I am not interested in leaded glass. I'm not interested in fusing because there's just too much math and process. And I really like being able to wing it. I like being able to take each piece and choose what goes here because it interacts with the piece around it. And so I like that flow with mosaic, but I also like the control I have, that I can cut these pieces that are the perfect fit. I have more control over the shapes with glass than I do with other materials. So I really enjoy that. I love the color and the luminosity and the versatility, like that I can make a piece that goes in a window and light can pass through, or I can make a piece you can walk on, although I don't use stained glass for that. But as an example of just the wide range of things you can do with mosaic, and that's why I love it. And I do sometimes work in tile or stone, and when the project calls for it, it's nice to have that flexibility. But my favorite is the stained glass. And then I get so many leftovers, some offcuts when I do work in more of the opus sectile style. I still end up with all these little offcuts, and then it's fun to work in a more realistic style using all those little shards. I like having both going on at the same time in my studio because it's nice to shift gears from the more stylized, folk arty influenced work that I do to making a picture of something where I have to think about the hue and the value and how to create that sense of dimension. And both are appealing to me.
Yeah, and you do both so well. So I'm
and then I would say one more recent thing is just a couple of years ago, I started trying to learn how to do more digital renderings by buying myself an iPad and learning to use Procreate. And it has changed my style. I'm seeing my style is slowly evolving still, in part because of the way I'm breaking images down now in a digital format. And it allows me to play with my designs in a whole different way. So anybody who's followed my work can probably see a little bit of that transition lately.
That's awesome. Yeah, Procreate can really open your art world out, even though it's your own things. It just lets you do things differently and manipulate before you're going to make. Because as we know in mosaic art, once it's down and it's glued, it's not like Procreate that you can erase it or just push the undo button. We don't have undo buttons in mosaic art. So it's brilliant that you're using that program to help you, create designs that are still your own. It's all that. It doesn't have anything to do with AI or any of that. It's still your own design. You're just getting to undo, redo, and play before you actually cut and make the glass.
Right. I'm importing my doodles and my photographs and then just manipulating those, and you can combine things together. It's really fun to be able to, it really stepped up my ability to submit proposals to my clients and things like that. But I've found it's actually really changed my design style while I'm at it.
And it's great for, I can give it away because it's not a big secret, but when we did Ariana Gallo's self-portrait, she had a picture of herself, but her teeth were showing a tiny bit and she wanted a little more bangs. So we took the teeth away, we added a little more bangs, and bada bing, bada boom. That is the image that you make, but it didn't do anything to change or alter her. We just wanted to make the mosaic and the image for the mosaic a little bit better for the students and for her. So it is a great program. It is a really great program. It's a great investment in your business. So I'm glad you did that, Jen. That's awesome. So Miss Shug, tell us a little bit about how, again, those small pieces tell such great stories.
When I started working in mosaic, I primarily used the vitreous glass tiles because that's what I was seeing in the books and everything. I'm not sure quite when I transitioned to stained glass. Probably when I went to either Chicago or Michigan or Vienna, Virginia, to teach, and they had stained glass there for people to use. And so I tried using it too. And I just taught myself how to cut stained glass. So it's not really probably the right way, but it works for me. And I'll cut a piece and then I'll shape it with my nippers, and sometimes I do this little nibble to get a shape I want. And but I love stained glass. The thing I like about it is I worked with Smalty for a long time, and I have pounds of Smalty that I won't allow myself to get rid of, even though I know I'm not going to use it. And you can get so many colors, but you're kind of stuck with the shape of the Smalty. It's only so big. It's only so wide. It's, and it's thicker. And so you can't get, for me, I can't get as detailed as I like to get, because with every medium I used, I would try to start loose, and then I would just like crank it up tighter. And with mosaic, I can be looser. I like to do people. When we were traveling so much, when he was in the Navy, that gave us a love of traveling. So since we've been in our 40s, we have traveled all over the place. And I take so many pictures, and my kids would always say, "Mom, you never take any pictures of us. You always take pictures of these people we don't know and all these buildings and stuff. And why don't you ever take pictures of us when we go on a trip?" And it's just like, well, because I need these to use in my work. Because I start with photographs. I don't always start with one photograph. I may find different people in different photographs from different countries that I like. I like their gesture, their position, what they're doing. I'll decide on one background, one place where they are, and I'll bring them all in and put them where I want them in the composition, so that it's just something that that I've created from all of these people. And even though I can cut things very tiny, and I do a lot of the time, but I also have areas where I use large pieces that I have chosen from the glass where I need something that's like jeans. I love to do jeans. And because you've got all those shades of the denim, and you've got the creases sometimes in the leg, and you can choose a piece of glass that it has that on it. So instead of having like 3 or 4 pieces of glass to make the bottom section of a pair of jeans, you can find one piece of glass that says all of that. And so I'll cut the shape, and it reads as the bottom pair of jeans. It doesn't have to be perfectly like the photograph. That's not important. It needs to read like it's supposed to. And I just love that. That's my favorite part of doing mosaic, is finding those pieces of glass. It's why I have so much stained glass in my studio.
Forget about the smalty. You got pounds and pounds of stained
I
glass.
know. It's art materials. It's a sickness. But I'd love to be able to search through and find that perfect area. It may be a little piece like this in the middle of a big sheet of stained glass that I'm going to have to cut down to get to the middle piece, but I will do it because
Yes.
that's what it's about for me.
And it's so true. And watching all three of you create when you've been to the studio here to film your courses is amazing. And before I forget, just while we're in the middle of this amazing talk, we are in the middle of our spring sale at Mosaic Arts Online. And if you didn't know, all courses are 10% off, and our code is spring 2025, which I'll mention more at the end. Jerry's going to put it in the chat just in case you didn't know and you're here and you want to learn more about what each of these artists do. And the style you see behind each of them is what their courses are. Darcel does have urban landscape, Shug does have figurative mosaics, and Jennifer has like 7 courses with us. Precision cutting, you name it. So you can just check it out at Mosaic Arts Online. And I just wanted to put that plug in now because it's really not about that today, but just because of what you guys are talking about, in case people did want to learn, more from you guys, that is available right now, and it is available at 10% off. But I'll pitch more at the end. Back to our show. That was my commercial. That was pretty good. Anyway, so now that you guys have kind of talked about how you got to this place and you have chosen this medium as how you make your mosaic art and how you manipulate them, differently, each of you, walk us through your kind of creative process. I know you've talked about taking pictures, but imagine, Darcel, you're like at your work table, and I've seen it. And again, I wish we did a little slideshow of each of your work tables when it's like the explosion is there, because I mean, with Darcel, it can be a piece of like this big of dichroic glass that is going to blow your mind when she sets it into the tail light or some other reflective space of her mosaic. So a little bit about the creative process, if you can kind of paint that out for them.
Well, Shug, with the finding that right piece of glass, I spend a lot of time shopping around my studio where I take a photo, because when you paint, I was very good at mixing colors. I could, if you want, I would take that palette knife and keep matching it next to the photo and get it exact. But with glass, there's just no, even if you have more glass than everyone in the city, you still, you have to make some compromises, or you have to find the next best color. So I will spend a lot of time shopping around. I take the photo around my studio, and I might find 6 or 8 pieces that are close, and then I have to decide which ones are going to be the right color. Or sometimes like a road, I might notice, like, oh, that part of the road is a little bit of a darker purple, and then there's a little bit of a light glare. So I'll take multiple colors and kind of weave them together to kind of, so the color will kind of shift as it goes across. But I make a big mess. So I usually put my piece, I work on the wood panels, and then I'll have little paper plates with, these are the pile of dichroic and shiny pieces, mirrored pieces, and special pieces that I might use. Then I might have another paper plate with like some little found object things that I might want to include. And then these other piles all around. I have a 6-foot square table that's really wonderful to work on. And I cut a lot of strips. And when I leave the pieces all over the place like a mess, but then I'll have to clear them off so I don't cut myself. And I'll just brush them all to one end. So it gets really messy, but I know where things are. I'll remember, oh, I know there's a strip of glass that one color I need right now. So, and I do love the shiny surfaces. I think I bought every single one at Delphi the other day. But I feel like with mosaic as opposed to painting, if this piece right here, with a window here, the way the light hits it, it looks different at different times of the day. And those shiny pieces are what light it up. And even when I painted, I used to kind of put little dashes of red on the corners of a car, or I tried to like find the reflective light and different things that's going to just kind of bring a little bit of excitement to that. So those little shiny pieces, I like the shiny iridescent surfaces because it will look completely different if you're looking from one angle as opposed to another. And I feel like that really ties into some of my artist statements where, it's about perception, so your point of view of Detroit might be different than this person over here because they saw it this way their whole life and they saw it another way. So I like tying those kind of things together, and also rebuilding Detroit, the little pieces. We're taking sometimes it's the trash on the ground, and we're literally rebuilding the city. So I like to bring that kind of meaning into it. But yeah, it's lots of piles of glass, and then I sweep them all up and try to put them back. And
dustpans are your friend. I totally get it. And it is really amazing to watch you work. And it is an explosion that all of a sudden becomes a mosaic. And it's really, really incredible. Jennifer, same kind of question, concept to completion. How does that whole process sort of come together?
Nowadays, I rarely just make something because I wanted to make it. I have a ton of ideas and things that I want to do, but I keep pursuing the commissions, and that's how I make a living. And then otherwise I'll be making things as demos for classes sometimes, which usually I just go with a simple, something that's easy to show what I do. And every now and then I'll make something like this piece behind me just because I drew a picture and I don't have a commission right now. So I get to do something just for myself. But most of the time I'm being called into a meeting, somebody has an idea, we want it to feel like this, the room is like this, or the space, and this is what it's used for. And I go to the space and I just try to get a sense of it, of the client, the goals, what is the feeling we're trying to get with this space. So it tends to be it's like having an art prompt in a way. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of ways, I've come to realize that I think I become more creative when I'm given parameters and I'm given some prompts. And so the thing that I like about it is that I've gotten the opportunity to make things that I never could have made without it being a commission, without it being something that I got funded to do. It stretches me into different comfort zones. I might present my client with an idea that I drew, and then they give me some feedback about what they like and don't like about it. And generally, I'm usually a little annoyed at first with like, no, this is the design. I liked it. And then I step back and I have to reflect and come to it with a different perspective. And that I think is good for me. It's good for my creative process. And most of the time I realize, oh, they were right. Like this is better once I actually do it. So there's a lot of that in my process of trying to take cues from the environment, from the client, and then working and reworking a design, which in some ways can be really tedious, because I would love to just take a year and just do my own work, but I always end up, in this cycle where I just don't. I have to keep earning a living because this is how I earn my living, and my projects keep getting bigger and bigger. Go figure. I keep saying I'm going to pull back. I'm going to slow down.
You just started to get going, though.
I
Come
know
on.
I'm just kind of hitting my stride.
You are.
I kind of got a late start. I was already in my 30s before I realized I wanted to do this. I had a baby and I didn't want to go back to my regular job, so I took some years off, and I decided to take business classes and see what would happen if I went toward commissions. People were asking me for small commissions, and then little by little, it grew into something where it actually does sustain me most of the time.
Wow.
So a lot of my process is about that. And then if you want to go a little further with it, then from there, a lot of the time I'm creating a template, and I have multiple ways that I come at that to scale up the idea. And then I work in my studio, I fabricate these projects, and then I take them and I install them on site.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've had long talks about, large scale commissions, because you and I have that similar background. That's all I did for, many years until 2019, when I had to slow that part of our business down just because of everything else being so busy. But there is something kind of special about being presented with an idea, like, I mean, my only example I love using is the mermaid. And I thought it was going to be like two mermaids on two rocks with their faces. And I was like, oh God, like try and do two faces. And this is insane. And actually Jerry said, why don't you do the back of a mermaid? And I was like, oh, that's not a bad idea. And I had one of my really tiny friends lay down on her stomach on my work table. And that's how I drew it out. And that was just the beginning of the body. And it was the most genius, one of his many genius ideas. But yeah, when someone says do a mermaid, and you're like, okay. And so yeah, doing commissions is special, and it is a different way, and it's completely different than, Shug you used to do, and now Shug is doing, her own fine art. So Shug, for you, concept to completion, like you took the picture in the diner from that perspective, which almost looks like you put your camera on the floor, or it was like on the seat of something, and it's just that perspective is incredible.
Actually, I was sitting in a booth looking. That was what I could see. But the end of my table actually cut out this part of the scene. So I didn't have their feet. I had like half of the back of the chair, and then it was blank from there, because I had the top of a gray table that was blocking what was there. So this particular one is done from one photograph, but the majority of it is. But that area that was blocked off, I needed to put what should be there in there. So I set up a chair in my living room and made my husband sit in it. And I had him do his legs in different positions, and his feet, so I could decide how I liked the shoes. And I took pictures of him from the back. And I did the same for the woman, because she's just wearing jeans, and she had on cowboy boots. So I just had him do it, and I moved him over a bit so that he was more at an angle for me. And I just picked out the ones I liked, and I drew that in to the scene, and it worked. I think that's the first time I've had to do that. But I love putting things together. I love doing people. I've always loved doing people. My first things I did were basically portraits, and I made money in high school because I sold charcoal or pencil portraits of people's boyfriends or girlfriends, probably a quarter a piece. This was so long ago, but that's how I made my spending money. Was that they would ask me, and they would give me like their school picture or something, and I would draw it for them. So it was fun. I've always been doing that. And so when I started doing mosaics, the first project we did, that big wall that Lynn and I got the commission for, there were a lot of heads in it. There were some kids, there were 4 kids, and then there were 4 or 5 older people, plus Frederick Douglass, because it's a Douglass community. It was named after him. And I had to do these heads in mosaic. And the largest one, Frederick Douglass, was 6 feet tall.
Wow.
So that was kind of mind-boggling, trying to figure out, doing the nose and the lips and the eyes and having the proportion really good. I mean, we blew it up, and I had the line drawing to get everything right, but doing that, the cheeks and getting the dimension and everything, and we did this with vitreous glass tile, so that was a challenge too. Getting the colors and everything, and getting it all right. Um, so when I started teaching portraiture, we used the vitreous glass tile and then moved into using mainly stained glass. And now it's if I use a glass tile, it's like a Sitges type tile where it's smooth on the front and the back, and I can cut out a little piece of it because it's the color that I need. That's another challenge with stained glass is we don't have all of the colors that you do when you paint. You can mix the color you want. Sometimes you have to substitute a color of glass that you really don't want to, but it is what it is. Gray is very difficult. There's not a lot of grays. And the ones you do have, sometimes in room light, it looks gray. And then the next day, when the sun comes up and you see it in the daylight, it's purple.
Yeah.
Or if you take it outside.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's challenging. That is challenging. But I love the challenge.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love the challenge.
That's awesome. Which kind of leads to my next question. And so, what is a day in the life? All of you are professional mosaic artists, meaning you do sell your art, you do show in exhibitions or galleries, you do commissions that end up in permanent places. So, what's a day in the life? I know, Darcel, you have your studio in Detroit. So, are you always getting ready for an exhibition, or what's like a day in the life for you?
Well, I find that in fine art, you spend so much time by yourself, and you have to. Part of the challenge is always trying to find that motivation and create that discipline of get there, create a schedule or a routine for yourself. So I am pretty good at that, and my studio is like 2 or 3 miles away, and I love my studio. I love being there. So I sometimes, and I'm in one of these phases now where I'll take a strip of paper and I'll tack it up on to my wall, and I'll have written in a marker, like a larger marker, like just one little name of a project I have going on or things I want to accomplish. I'll make sure I have that list so that a constant reminder that helps me. But I typically will start something and finish it. The one thing, maybe I'll let 2 or 3 things pile up before I grout them, but I will typically be real hyper-focused on getting that one piece done. And I really do enjoy the studio part of it, but sometimes it's exhausting, because I tend to just stand up and then my back hurts. But and the older I get, it seems harder. but I have found that there's so much more to just than the work in the studio. There's so much more. You have to buy your supplies. You have to go to other galleries. You should need to be aware what other people are making and what doing in the community. And you need to build relationships with gallery directors. And I'm involved in the alumni council at the college I went to, and so there's other responsibilities, but I enjoy that interaction, and I need to feel like I'm a part of something because of all the alone time you have as an artist. And so the part I used to call it all the computer stuff I need to do. And I had this mentor one time, and she said, "You mean the administrative work?" And I go, so lots of times, sometimes I'll bring my computer to the studio and do the work there, or sometimes I'll stay home and do it. Updating your resume and statement and having your website. There's so many facets to finding balance, getting photos taken of your work and sending people all the things that they need. And then you have commissions. So there's nothing's the same,
Right.
This client, you have this and this and this. It's a really distinct project. And then something else might be so different. So, like Jennifer was saying, you have to cater to what the client is asking. So, sometimes it's going out to appointments. So it's not all just sitting there gluing mosaic all day long, because there's a lot of other things to do. And all those things are really critically important to being a well-rounded artist. You need to have an updated statement at all times and resume, and you need to just be aware, there's just so much to it. And Sam is coming. I get those phone calls from Joan. Are you going? Those kind of things, and interacting with my other friends that are artists and being aware and involved in what they're doing. It's important, so you all support each other. So
yeah. No, community is huge, especially when we spend so much time in our studios. It is true. So Jen, same question to you. Day in the life of your now about to be new studio. Jen is in the process of building a new studio and getting it moved over. It's exciting.
Yeah, I thought I'd be in there months ago, but they're actually out there working on things right now. We became more ambitious than we should have. But and then other things have come up and slowed us down. There's always that, taking care of life at home. I have a little farm. I live out in the middle of nowhere. I'm hoping that the sounds of construction out there aren't interfering with the sound. So, I get up every morning and I take care of a lot of animals. And then I get started where I am right now is actually my little makeshift office space. It has been for a lot of years. And so I come in here, I work on the computer usually until almost lunch. So there's a lot, like Darcel's saying, there's a lot to do with answering emails, filling out forms, calls for art. For me, most of the way that I get my jobs is by applying for things. So there are all these listservs and calls for art platforms that you can go on, sign up for, and then you fill out, sometimes lengthy application process. It can be hours of work for each one. For me, I don't work with the galleries and very often. And I'm more likely, if I'm going to participate in a gallery show, it's because I was invited by a group to be part of a group show. I'm just not producing enough of my own work to warrant a show. So most of what I'm doing is I'm looking at, what are the opportunities that are out there, and then making lists. Like Darcel said, lists are my friend, because otherwise my brain is too much of a tornado. And I am a hermit. My studio is on site. So it can be hard to focus, especially when there's a lot of something else going on, like personal stuff, family stuff, things like that can make it really hard. I can't just go to work and put that, compartmentalize those thoughts. So, and I tend to be thought of as being available. So, hey, since you're home, can you, pick up or do the things? And, so I have a lot of distractions, and it can be hard for me to stay focused. And otherwise, Yeah, life out in the forest, and I get to take breaks when I want to take breaks, and I get to be self-directed, and that works well for me, even though sometimes I can float away a little bit and completely lose track of what needs to get done.
It's awesome. I mean, yes, I will be, beating the drum of trying to figure out time management till the end. It's when you are not accountable to somebody else as far as like a job, like you said, and compartmentalize, and you run your own business. And like Darcel listed everything before she even listed what it's like to sit down and cut glass. Like it
Right.
really is so much more than just making art. And I commend you guys all for getting, as accomplished as you are, because I know what's behind that. It is not just making the art. And to say that you sit down till lunch at the computer just to do computer stuff or admin, whatever you want to call it, and get it done, because it does move the needle, but it's not the same as what it feels like when you finally get to stand at your table and just make art, which is, really what we all love to do, which I have pretty much brought to a complete halt in my life just because of what we do. So it is, I completely understand. And Shug, for you, you're retired now, but you'd still do this full time, as we know, and, you're in shows. And before I forget, because they've all sort of mentioned the SAMA thing, the Society of American Mosaic Artists is an incredible organization. Shug, you were the first president. Am I right?
No,
No.
I was probably fourth or fifth.
If she was fourth or fifth, I was like 11th or 12th or 13th. I don't know, but I was the president from 2019 till 22. And they are having their next conference in Orlando, October 30th to November 1st. I highly recommend going if you can. It is an incredible in-person place to meet all of your favorite people and just be part of that tribe of mosaic art. So that's my second commercial and last one, because we're going to get to Shug, and then we got some questions coming from our audience. So if y'all want to start putting your questions in the chat while Shug shares what it's like in a day in the life in your studio.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I look forward every year to the SAMA conference. I have been to every single one.
one of them.
I love it. I love to get to see other artists. I've made so many friends there, and I come home so excited and inspired to work that I can't even stand it. I've got to get in the studio and start making things because I've been so inspired by all the things that I've seen. Because I need motivation. I do really well on a deadline. You give me a deadline, I will 95% of the time I will meet it. But if I'm just left to my own devices, it'll take me forever because I get distracted here and there. I don't work every day in my studio. Um, I I do get out of the house. Um, I have several groups that I go and meet with, do various and sundry things, like 1 week a month or every Wednesday or whatever, and it gets me my people time that I need, and the rest of the time I'm just kind of whatever. But I come in here and my computer time is usually spent going through photos. And I've got a lot of photos in my files that are called reference or inspiration. And sometimes they're divided by countries or they're divided by how many people are in each one. I have all these different files. And I'll think, okay, I'm kind of wanting to do something like this. So I'll go through and find the people I want. And I'll make another file that's on the desktop so that I can choose from those. I'll bring those up that I picked out, put in that file, and I'll go through and choose from those. But I like to do several compositions at once. I will figure them out. I'll get them drawn out. Um, and I'll have my photographs that go with it, my line drawing, and I'll take it to Office Depot, wherever, and get it blown up to the size I need. Sometimes I'm blowing up these people from this photograph and these people from this photograph, and get them to the size that I need. And then I draw it all out again when it's the working size. And I have my flat file drawer that I put these in, and then I have my list. And I'll give them each a name, and I'll put it down there, and um, I'll assign them to things like, okay, I'm making this for a friend. This one's going to be for the salon. This one's going to enter into MAI, that kind of thing. And I'll put them in an order that those need to get done. I'll prioritize them. And so I've got them in my drawer. When I'm ready to work on that one, I can just pull it out, cut my substrate, and get to work on it. I probably need to work more often. I go in spurts. If I start on something, I work, 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 work. I will totally finish it. I will grout it. I will frame it. It is ready. I I have never, unless it was when we had our big studio and we might have several projects at a time, worked on more than one mosaic at a time. I like to focus on what I'm doing, thinking about it all the time, and thinking about what I'm going to edit out, what I might want to put in that wasn't there. Um, just total focus on one at a time. And sometimes I will go right into another one. Other times it might be a week or two before I get around to starting again, because I have to catch up with stuff that didn't get done while I was head down on my mosaic, because life goes on and you got to do laundry sometime. And um, but I like planning in advance. I'm a big planner. I liked planning. When I was a watercolor artist, it would take me 6 to 10 hours to draw my drawing onto my watercolor paper before I ever put the brush on it. I could finish it in less time than it took me to draw it.
Wow.
Because I had to plan everything out. And I'm just a planner. That's all I can say. I'm just a planner.
Yes, and I think we all have that in us, at least the four of us, is, every year I buy my Moleskine daily planner because I cannot live without a to-do list. Boxes must be checked. I think it's the only way to keep our type of lifestyle, being entrepreneurs and everything, slightly organized. So thank you so much, you guys. Is there any questions from those of you that are listening to these three incredible artists that you want to ask them? And if so, you can put it in the chat and we'll happily answer it. Otherwise, I just want to thank you guys so much. We've hit just about an hour here. I think you guys have covered so much. We could go on for another hour. And we have one question. Shug, how do you use the pictures? Do you copy them onto the substrate or copy it from looking at it?
I trace it. I will sometimes I've just got a small photograph, and I'll do like an outline, I'll trace a line drawing. I don't put a lot of information. I'm just wanting position of things and gesture. So I will draw it out, I will blow it up, and then I transfer it onto my substrate with graphite paper, and just do the outline so that I've got my entire outline of my mosaic. I find if you put too much information in there, it's confusing and you get overwhelmed, because it's like, oh, what am I supposed to do that? And then you can't find where you need to be because there's so much on the substrate. So just a simple outline drawing for the most part. You might make a note where, oh, there's a big shadow here or whatever. But yeah, I start from the photo, trace, put things together, enlarge, retrace, transfer.
Right. And
And
that can be learned in her online course, which is 10% off now at Mosaic Arts Online. We have one more question. And Gail, are any of you doing workshops at SAMA? And have any of you applied? Because I know they're in the application process right now at SAMA for teachers. So are all three of you applying, or what's happening?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
me too.
I'm really tripped up with how do I get all those supplies to Florida? So
Right. Okay.
figure that out.
And Jen, you're muted. Jen, you're muted.
I have been on the fence also. Like, I'd really like to go, but I have 2 big commissions coming up, and I just don't know if it's, I don't know if it makes sense or if it's realistic. It's so far for me.
Yeah, and it is. It's just the beginning process right now. So I think we'll see a lot more of that evolving when we see everybody that's going to be applying to it. But again, if you can't learn with them in person, all three of them have exactly what they teach in their live workshops online here at Mosaic Arts Online. And you have another question, Darcel, the work behind you, did you do the car? Are they big pieces? It's hard to see that it's pieces of glass, which is the idea.
Yeah, that is the idea. That piece is, yes, it's 4 foot square, and I did the whole thing. Yeah,
There you go.
it's got some detail. There's, little found objects in there, and it's not quite as many cones that were in the photo, but that piece is called Growing Pains in reference to the cones. They're in our way, but our city's growing and getting better. So.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, well, I cannot thank you guys enough for taking the time to be here. I can't thank you, our MAO community, for showing up today for our live event. We will be having more in the future. You can always catch this one plus everything else we have on our YouTube channel, which is years and years of content from many of our artists, plus some demos. And just again, remember to push the subscribe button. We are having our sale through Sunday, a week from tomorrow. The code is spring 2025, 10% off all courses. Get as many as you like, and then watch them when you can. I thank you guys again, and we'll see you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.